Welcome to the Mismatch. I'm Chris Vernon, and joining me live in Las Vegas, Nevada for Summer League is Kevin O'Connor from TheRinger.com, a.k.a. Kevin O'Bomber, Kevin O'Concert, Kevin O'Climber, Kevin O'Candyland, Kevin O'Blazarian, Kevin O'Sphere. In the shadows of the sphere, Kevin
Verno! Live and in person, our annual live in Vegas.
Yeah.
Last night we saw Chris Angel. Chris Vernon to Chris Angel. Great idea.
We did go see Chris Angel. So one of the things that I've learned about Las Vegas Summer League, I've been coming out here for many years, and my producer from back home, Roser, I had told him, I said, look now, every year we never regret going to shows. We never regret going somewhere great to eat. We always regret going out or sitting at the gambling all night.
That's true.
And
you just lose money. Who likes to lose money?
So this year, we have decided to actually put into action trying to go to either great restaurants or go to shows. And so I have been here since Thursday night. Friday night, I did Garth Brooks. It was a 50 out of 10. He has like no set list. Takes like fan requests and whatever, plays all kinds of songs that you would never hear him
deep
play.
Cuts, like the hardcore Garth Brooks fans might love.
At one point, he got a request from the audience, and it was from like his first album, and he's like, I'm sorry. He's like, I haven't played this in like 30 years. Ends up just dropping his guitar and singing it a cappella. Wow. He can't remember how to play it on the guitar. And so that was super cool. He like sings the, Shallow from Stars Born, and then his wife, Trisha Yearwood, big country star, she comes out and sings a girl's part.
That's
she
cool.
does some of her songs. It was great. He was at Caesars. And then obviously last night we did Chris Angel.
That was so fun.
And Chris Angel, who
Mind freak.
He was such a huge deal, right? Like everybody was watching that on TV. He had really taken the world by storm. And so I know he had been doing this residency for a long time. He's now at Planet Hollywood. And so
he's 56 years old.
Yeah, 56.
Yeah, still got energy.
He does still have energy. And we took a big group and it was great. Chris Angel, that was a big win. That was a really good show too. So none of the shows have been bad. Meanwhile, going over to the gym to watch basketball games, was super disappointed. Obviously, there was a lot of people that packed the gym on Friday for the first game that I went to.
There's a lot of people here.
Like,
I honestly think it's more than I've ever seen. Like
really?
the line going into Cox Pavilion.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What the hell? It's crazy.
It's become a big event here.
Even more than last year. Honestly, I wasn't here Friday. Yeah. Obviously, Victor was a big year. Like there was the LaMelo year and all that too with the Lakers, but I feel like there's just more people. I don't know. That's just my impression.
I'll tell you this. I could hardly find a seat for the Zion debut because I wasn't sitting in the media section.
Yeah.
I just sat up in the stands. And then
LaMelo was that way too.
Wemby last year, I was in the upper deck.
Oh, wow.
Because I didn't get there early enough for a seat. And also the game before that where Jabari Parker hit a game winner. And Houston was playing that
was epic,
and then
dude.
Followed by the Wemby game was absolutely crazy. This year on Friday, people were starting to pack into the small gym, and then Zach Edey wasn't able to play. I've been told they are not shutting him down, like he's going to play.
Why?
He twisted his ankle in the Utah one.
So they're just being ultra cautious.
In the first game that he played, and so obviously, look, he's expected to be the starting center for that team. Yeah. But Edey's a big draw. And then I will say, I got done with that first game, and I wanted to go over and see the Houston Lakers game because I knew that would be the slammed one with Bronny James and Dalton Connect and obviously Reed Sheppard on the other side. I go over to the Thomas & Mack Center, and it was slammed.
Really?
The only...
Like Zion-style slammed.
The only seats, and that was at like 4:30 in the afternoon. The only seats that we could get were about 3/4 of the way up in the upper deck in the end zone. That was the only seats available. So we went up there and sat in them. And let me tell you something. There was a buzz after that game about Sheppard. Like, There's I don't know if you saw this, and I don't know how many people in our audience saw this, but there's a documentary that ran the other night. Like I was watching the Summer League game, and then I just left the channel on NBA TV, and there's a documentary. It was like an hour-long thing, and it was called 20 Years of Summer League. And it was just the story of Summer League and, Warren LeGarry putting this thing together and the thing that, what David Stern and Adam had to do with it. And it's really good. It's certainly worth watching, especially for all of the clips over the 20 years of seeing these guys. And one of the things that stood out to me in that was at one point, somebody says, Summer League is, you have to, sometimes it's the first time these guys are going through it. You're just throwing a team together. And they said, but generally the stars will show you their stars. They promote this as it will start here. And obviously, look, there are guys that don't have big games that end up. But Kevin, we've been doing this for many, many years. And there are so many times where we will talk about somebody being mega impressed with them, and then it did mean something. There are times, especially on the struggle side, where it hasn't meant anything. But there are more times than not when somebody has been absolutely awesome, it informed us to what was going to happen. Obviously, the biggest one for us was Donovan Mitchell many, many years ago. And I did kind of get that feeling with Sheppard the other night, especially with the hezzy and then leaving Dalton Connect in the dust. But, I mean, it was blocks, it was steals, it was knocking down threes.
Filled the box score in every way.
He shot a logo three after the buzzer one time, and it was like, it was Curry-esque in the sense of you feel like everything the guy throws up is going to be going in, and then it starts to. And
that's because it does.
Hell of a debut.
It does, Chris.
It does go
It does. I mean, he was like 95th percentile or better in every shooting metric on Synergy, as Russillo indicated on the BS pod weeks back. And I think with Sheppard, the reason why I ranked him number one on my board was precisely because of that shooting ability as just this foundational skill. That's an elite skill for him. In this draft class, when you look around all of these prospects, like there's a lot of good prospects, a lot of prospects with big question marks, but there's really nobody with a truly elite skill. Sheppard was one of the few that had an elite skill with his shooting ability. So you factor that as a foundational skill with the elite feel, the ability to create a little bit. He had an 18% usage rate at Kentucky, and you look back now, you're like, damn, Coach Cal should have been given more touches to Reed Sheppard, more touches to Dillingham instead of the upperclassmen that he had to give touches to, like Reeves in the starting lineup. But with Sheppard, he showed it all off. The mid-range pull-up, obviously the logo three you mentioned, the distance on his shots, but then the activity on defense, which, yes, he's small. Yes, he's 184 pounds. Yes, he's only 6'1", but he gets steals. He gets deflections. He can block shots. He blocked a ton of clutch threes last year at Kentucky. I believe it was 3 or 4 times in the last 2 minutes of a game that he blocked a three-pointer, a 6'1" guard in the last 2 minutes of games, like clutch moments. So he's going to have those moments with the Rockets, maybe in Summer League, if not then during the season. And I think that that debut for him on Friday night is really a sign of things to come for Reed Sheppard as the number 3 pick for Houston. Raphael Stone, their GM, had him first on their board, he said. I believe that to be true. They're very analytics heavy. A lot of analytics models had Sheppard number 1 on their boards. So I think Sheppard could very well prove as a 6'1", little white guy to prove to be the best player in the class. And, we'll see as time passes by, but that was a great start.
Yeah, he was awesome. And I feel bad for Bronny.
I know, it's so much like attention, and then he can't shoot, as we've known since he was in high school.
It was the first time where I was like,
I know, it's a bit much.
I'm like, this whole arena is packed, and it's because of him.
For him. Because of his dad, who he is.
Right.
Yes.
And it's like, he's not
nowhere close.
He's not going to be able to do this where it's like everybody is there to watch him like he's a star and he's a role player, right? Who is then trying so hard to perform on what becomes this inordinately big stage.
I know.
Right? It's crazy to watch it. And I know there's some people out there like, oh, yeah, I really feel bad for him, right?
He's getting paid $8 million the next 4 years.
I got you, right?
The son of LeBron, billionaire.
But there is still,
of course,
the place is slammed, and you are just not good enough.
He's nowhere close. He's nowhere close. I mean, he was not a good shooter in high school. He was a very poor shooter at USC. He hasn't made a three in summer league so far, California Classic, or so far in Vegas as we record this on Sunday morning. So, I mean, I think with him, man, like, he's active. Like, he hustles. He's got get a little bit good connective feel as a passer, but he's not a primary creator. He didn't get to the rim at USC. He hasn't so far, with the ball in his hands in summer league, and he can't shoot yet. I mean, like, the shot looks good. Like, he elevates and it looks good, but it doesn't go in very much at all. And so, I hope. I hope this is for the best for him as a kid. I'm rooting for him because I think it would be awesome to see Bronny James in the league for years to come, competing at a high level after LeBron James is retired in some number of years. I think that would be really awesome. I genuinely do. I think it would be a great story. I hope they're able to play together on the floor and be competitive together, but I don't think Bronny's anywhere close. I think he's not even ready for the G League at this point. He's going to go in the G League next year and probably play a lot for the Lakers G League team, and he's going to struggle. Because the G League is a man's league. Like we saw Scoot Henderson in his first year in the G League, he struggled. And then his second year, he got better. Manas Buzelis and all these guys, Ron Holland, all these G Leaguers this past year, they have more physically ready bodies and games, and they had their moments where they really struggled. So, when he's playing for the G League Lakers, I would imagine it's going to be a lot of struggling. And I think if that's the case during the season, do you continue playing him or do you start hiding him and then he's not getting any on-court reps at all? Like, how is that for the best for him? I guess we'll see. Maybe the shot starts falling, but if it doesn't, I really worry about what this is going to turn into.
I wanted to mention this to you. You talked about, you mentioned Buzelis in passing. The other day, I was talking to Gigi Jackson, who was at one point the number one player in what would be this class, right? Amongst his peers.
And he reclassified.
And then he reclassed. But this was his class. And I asked him coming up, who was the guy that you looked at when you would play against them? One of these, game recognizes game things. That was the guy he said.
Interesting.
And how about this one? He said originally, before he decommitted, he was going to North Carolina. And he said the plan was him and Buzelis were going to go together to North Carolina. Obviously, Buzelis ended up going to the G League. Gigi reclassed and then went to South Carolina for his year.
That would have been a really good Carolina team.
You think?
Yeah.
But he was telling me, he said he's the one. Like that when he played against him, he thought he was the guy. And it's interesting because he's going to be one that I'm super paying attention to as this process goes out. He went a lot lower in the draft, I think, than most people expected him to go.
Someone had a fall, and it was him.
Yeah. And then about 2 years ago, when the All-Star game was in Utah, they do the Basketball Without Borders, and they bring in all the international players, and the only people that are allowed in the gym are scouts, GMs, talent evaluators. And from the people I talked to that were in that gym, I'm like, who do I need to know going forward? I'll never forget them all saying there's Buzelis and then there's everybody else. And that's amongst all those guys that were going to be coming from overseas. Now, obviously things changed. We had 2 international players go in the very first two picks of this draft, right?
And two French guys.
And then I talked to a European scout at the game the other day, who I've known for many, many years. And I asked him about the different guys because all he does is scouts overseas. And he told me that he thought the best of them was going to be Salaün.
Oh, wow. Tate Frazier's going to be very happy to hear that.
That's what he told me.
Yes.
He said, I think Salaun's going to be the best of all of them.
I mean, I like Tate,
and I was like, what?
Tate and I were talking yesterday for his show on FanDuel TV Through the Ringer. And Tate, we agree on this, that, for the first X amount of years in their careers, Sarr and Ricochet will be better. Like they're ahead of Salaün right now. They will get more touches, more opportunities early in their careers. They're like, you got on Charlotte, you got Brandon Miller, who dominated his first summer league game on Friday after entering his second season. You got Miles Bridges back there. There's a lot of guys that are going to be getting any touches. LaMelo Ball. Salaun's going to be a backup, probably getting limited minutes at first. But in the years to come, it won't be surprising if Salaün ends up that guy who, he goes 6th. And maybe you're like, oh, he's actually the best player, the second best player, the third best player in the draft class. He ends up the best Frenchman of all the guys drafted in the top 6. It won't be shocking because if you consider his body, 6'8", 6'9", very muscular, can handle the ball a little bit, plays his ass off on defense. That's what he provides right away. And one of the interesting things that I heard about around draft night, and this is a guy that I haven't liked over the years. He was very mean to one of my favorite players of all time, Mo Bamba. And that's the former head coach of the Orlando Magic and then of the Charlotte Hornets, Steve Clifford, who moved into their front office. That day of the draft, Kristen Peak was the first person from Yahoo Sports that reported that the Hornets really like Salaün at number 6. And then I was like, interesting. I did some digging. It turns out that Steve Clifford, the guy who moved into the front office after stepping down as head coach, he was one of the people loudest and most vocal about his love for Salaün.
Oh.
And I think that's in part because of that work ethic, that never stop attitude. And everybody I've talked to in and around Salaün's, camp, they say he is like a true MFer on the court and off the court with the work he puts in. So, I mean, that's not taking anything else away from anybody else that works hard, in the draft. But I think specifically with him, there's something different. So if you're betting on character and on physical dimensions that he has, I mean, he's going to maximize whatever he becomes. So yes, over the course of time, I can see why scouts love him. Maybe he does end up the best in the draft class, but it will take time. It will.
So the Sheppard and Bronny thing was the first, that was kind of prime time out here. That was the first time that I saw the place was absolutely slammed. As we're opening the notebook and different things that I've gleaned, I will say I was going to see, the whole plan was I was going to watch Zach Edey play, and then I was going to go over and I was going to watch Reed Sheppard.
You did see Cam Spencer though, Chris.
I did see Cam Spencer.
It went off. What did GJ say to you about him on your show?
An effing dog.
Yeah, I love it.
He loves
I love it.
He loves him.
He is a dog.
Anyway, on the opening the notebook front, you want to try to guess? They told me that the 3 top jersey sales on Fanatics for rookies so far. What do you think?
None of the French guys. That's true. That's true. None of them?
Yes. No.
Okay. Reed Sheppard?
Nope.
No. Zach Edey?
Zach Edey.
Bronny James.
Bronny James.
So who's the third? Probably a Laker. Dalton Connect, right?
It's not Dalton Connect.
No. Who is it then?
Think fame. Who is famous?
Oh, of course, Jared McCain.
It's Jared McCain.
Oh, yeah, of course.
The top 3.
Yeah.
And so there was a huge contingent from Memphis that were there at the Utah Summer League, of which Philly was there, right?
Yeah.
They, my buddy that was there said, McCain gets this response. He's like a YouTuber or a TikToker or a famous.
He is a TikToker.
I know, but he doesn't get the reaction of a basketball player. People are freaking out. They're like, Jared. He might be the first that is way more famous for being online than he is for basketball, and yet he's a fantastic basketball player. He's actually
really good, I know.
Seriously. I mean, it is strange. The Edey thing, he is famous because he was 2-time National Player of the Year, and he's 7'4".
He's
right?
massive. And he spent 4 years in college.
That's right. And 4 years in college. Lost as a 16-1, which that propelled the stardom tenfold. And then obviously the rebound season this past year where he wins Player of the Year. And he
got better every year too. I think college basketball fans saw that improvement year in, year out from him as well. And that's respected.
I have a lot of friends, especially living in the South, that do not care about the NBA and are SEC football fans. That's what they care about. They know who Zach Edey is. Zach Edey is famous, right? Because anybody that pays attention to any sports whatsoever has an awareness of the Final Four and certainly who the best player is. And so Edey's famous on that level. Bronny's famous for obviously his name, his lineage, his father. He's been in the public eye for basically his whole life. We've known about him. The McCain thing is fascinating to me because
he dances on TikTok and sings.
I know. you are more likely to see highlights of Jared McCain doing some dance in a pink shower cap than you are hitting a jumper. And yet he is a fantastic basketball player, but I'm not sure that we've had someone that was much more famous for off the court. Maybe the Ball family, obviously.
Yeah, the Ball family's one.
LiAngelo and LiAngelo and LaMelo and Lonzo. I actually saw all three of them together.
I think I said LaMelo earlier when I said the big packed crowd was Lonzo. My bad. Yes.
Yeah. I saw all three of them last night together.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah, they were rolling deep.
Lonzo rolling around or walking around?
The Ball brothers. No, he was actually walking.
Okay, good.
Yeah, all three of them. In fact, when I left you at the Cosmo last night, when I was walking outside, they were all walking in together.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
They were rolling deep, the Ball brothers. All three of them were together. I
hope Lonzo can get back, man.
Oh.
I miss him.
For sure.
I really do.
I mean, it feels like we have not watched him play basketball.
No.
At all.
Yep.
So hopefully he can. He might just have such the issue that it's never going to be right.
I hope LaMelo can get back for that matter too.
Right,
he was averaging like almost 30 points a game to finish, the last month or so of last season after a bad start, and then he gets hurt again.
All right, so let's talk about some of these other guys. And you and I were both big Reed Sheppard fans. Obviously, he showed out. And we say that sometimes when we have these big performances in the Summer League, they do end up actually meaning something, that we look back and we go, oh, this is one of those examples of the Stars showed us that they, these guys showed us that they were a level above. Who is Jordan Miller? And should I read anything to this? I'm going to tell everybody this was Jordan Miller is a second-year player. He was a G League star, and in the Clippers win over the Nuggets, he was drafted 48th overall in the 2023 draft, and he just had a game where he had 36 points. 36 in his game. And so what do we know about Jordan Miller? I mean, you want to talk about out of sight, out of mind, right?
Yeah. So Jordan Miller, he was a senior at Miami, drafted second round, like you said last year, 6'4". He looks way bigger than that on the floor because he's so long with a 7-foot wingspan. But Jordan Miller is somebody, he became like a good all-around player at Miami. And that you said he had a good year in the G League, that carried over to the G League. The one thing that impressed me in that Friday night game for the Clippers was the diversity in his shot making. He had like a three coming off a screen or a handoff. He had like some movement shooting, and like he's always been a guy that has touch from mid-range with floaters, with free throws and all that, but he's never had the three-pointer translate. And so the fact that it's just one game, just one summer league game, but it just, he had a more diverse shot diet than he had at Miami or even last year in the G League. And so I think with him, you look at the Clippers this year, they lose Paul George, they make a ton of additions that we talked about on a recent podcast. And you think about, well, maybe can one of their young players elevate their play and take advantage of the gap left by Paul George? Well, maybe Jordan Miller is one of those guys who was a late bloomer at Miami. He took 4 years to really pop, and even then, he was still only a second-round pick, but some people had him as a late first on their boards. I think Jordan Miller showed enough talent. I had him 51 on my board that year because of his age. He was 23 when he entered the draft, so he's 24 now. But Jordan Miller, man, like we talked earlier about some of these guys. We talked about Tidjane Salaün, with his effort and intensity, and Reed Sheppard, how he blocks shots and picks up steals. Jordan Miller's got that dog in him too. And he's just one of those hard-nosed, tough players. And so I think for the Clippers, they had a bunch of veterans, but Jordan Miller maybe is that guy entering his second year. At 24, he's older. Yep. He's got a lot of experience under his belt. Maybe he's somebody that deserves attention as a potential rotation player for the Clippers.
Well, and you know what I was thinking? 36 is a big number for a summer league game, and I was telling you about watching that documentary, and they're doing the Steph bit, and they're showing about Steph Curry, him playing in his first summer league, and he's got this team around him, and it was cool to watch the clips. And they were showing during that, the big buzz was actually not even about Curry. Anthony Morrow had 47
in
a summer league game.
Wow.
Anthony Morrow
Anthony Morrow?
Yes, he had 47
Wow.
in a summer league game and could not miss.
Oh my God.
Like absolutely could not miss. And like the team was like Steph Curry, Anthony Randolph from LSU, Anthony Morrow. And look, Anthony Morrow ended up having a career.
He had a career.
Right?
Yeah.
And made some money playing in the NBA, right?
He was a bucket getter.
Got a good contract. And so when I see stuff like the Jordan Miller thing, it's like, because Anthony Morrow, again, another one of those guys, right? Older, second round pick.
Yes.
You know, all of that stuff. And then he popped at Summer League and he had this, that was the first time where everybody was like, who is that?
Yes.
And who knows? Maybe it is one of those blips on the radar, or maybe it actually will mean something when we look back and like, oh, wow, Jordan Miller is actually an NBA player with a real NBA career.
He played 23 games in the G League last year. He averaged 22.5 points, 48% from the field. Again, only 31% from three. That's the thing with him. But he was 82% from the free throw line. So you hope that translates. He seven rebounds, 2 assists, 1.2 steals. I mean, he's a guy who fills up the box score. He's versatile defensively. He plays hard. With him, I hate always saying, well, if a guy just shoots, he can get minutes. But with Jordan Miller, he's a good example of a guy where if the shot is falling, he's gonna be an NBA minutes player. He just is, because he has everything else. He checks every other box. He was just way older at Miami, and the shot never translated at the level that it needed to from beyond the arc. So maybe this is the year for the Clippers, because they looked very diverse in that first game. I was really impressed with his shot making.
All right, so we did have a moment through these first couple of days in Summer League where I was like, oh, of course, right? Because it was a guy that we talked about through the end of the basketball season, college basketball season. We talked about during the NCAA tournament, and then his team ran into UConn and just got absolutely blasted. But a guy that you and I were very high on, and then when the draft came around, he ended up going pretty low in the first round, and then this debut in Summer League, I'm like, oh my God, this is one of those guys that I should have just stuck with. What I watched in college is translatable stuff, and in his game, he looked like the best player on the floor, and it's one of those moments where it's like, maybe they'll show you that they are better than the rest of these guys, and it's Shannon from Illinois.
Yeah,
Terrence Shannon. This dude is blocking shots.
He looked ready.
Oh, crazy dunk. He looks so athletic. He looks athletically superior. And obviously, so much of what he did at Illinois, you watched him on the court in college and you thought, this is a guy that is very easy to see in an NBA uniform. A guy that can defend his position, a guy that can knock down shots, a guy that's mega athletic. Everybody loves these kind of wings. It just, if you watched him, you felt like, I can see him in an NBA uniform, and I could see him doing a lot of the stuff that we are watching him do at Illinois. In that first game, he's the 27th pick in the draft. He finishes with 25 points on 9 of 14, 3 rebounds and 2 blocks.
Yeah, I mean, look, dude, I think what Minnesota did on draft night, they took 2 big swings. They swung on the trade up to get Dillingham at number 8 with the trade with the Spurs. They swung on Terrence Shannon. And I think if they get a hit, you know, a home run with both of those picks, or a double with one of them, a single with one of them, and a triple with the other, it changes everything for Minnesota with what they can become this coming season as they try to, you know, take a step further than they did this past year going to the conference finals, but also changes things for years to come with them as, you know, other young guys getting paid. McDaniel's contract coming up. You get rookie contributors on those deals.
The roster gets expensive.
Exactly.
And the 27th, if you hit the 27th pick,
oh man,
it's as good a value as you could possibly have.
Absolutely.
In the NBA. Those ones that are at the back end of that first round,
so
because
cheap.
They're locked in. You know, there's some of these guys, and it's becoming more relevant, more prevalent for the second round picks to sign longer deals. You're seeing more, it used to always be these 2-year deals, but now you're seeing guys sign 4-year deals in that second round.
Lots of them.
You do, but it's always been a locked in. You've got that guy locked in at that price. And look, there are second round picks that are now making more money than the late first round picks, because the late first round picks, they're locked into a number, and those second round picks, they're more negotiating their number.
Well, and that's why for Minnesota with both of these guys, Dillingham, I mean, like, I'm sure he's going to have a big night at some point in the summer league. He's just too good of a scorer, too shifty. But with Terrence Shannon doing what he did, think about what the Wolves were lacking. They were lacking more shot creation alongside Anthony Edwards and Mike Conley. And Terrence Shannon, with the downhill attacking ability, his ability to get to the basket through the teeth of defense, make kick-out passes, which he didn't need to do in that opening game, finish at the rim, create shots off the dribble jumpers from mid-range, maybe from 3. I think he's the type of guy that he fills exactly what Minnesota needs. And then Dillingham.
Well, defensively, another guy. Long perimeter.
Yes.
You can't score on us,
exactly.
guy.
Which is what helps overcome the flaw with Dillingham.
Yep.
Dillingham's small. He's 164 pounds. He's 6 feet tall, 6'1". But if you're surrounding him with like a lineup of Terrence Shannon, Jaden McDaniels, Rudy Gobert, Naz Reid, whatever the 5 is out there with like a bench unit mixed with starters, like suddenly it matters a little bit less if you are a guy getting targeted. And
they're doing it with Conley.
Yeah, even though Conley's like a good defender,
he's a smaller guy.
He's smaller, so they target him. So, but like I think, and Conley is like not as good as he once was because he's so much older. But I think for Minnesota, man, like they took 2 big swings. Their big swing was Dillingham trading up to get him at 8, but Terrence Shannon in his own way was a big swing too, because I think based purely off of talent in the draft and not off of age, like he's again another older prospect. These older guys fall all the time. Terrence Shannon, like, arguably is one of the, 10, 15 best players as a scorer in the draft. It's just he's older. His defense regressed a little bit as his scoring workload increased. But if you look at his earlier years in college at Texas Tech, that dude was a dog.
Well, and you
flying
also
around.
Look, it would be remiss if we did not mention, his off the court issues,
of course,
and those allegations of which he was completely cleared from.
Course.
It might have been too late.
It may have been too late, and that's why I didn't mention it, because I do think with teams, like the fact it was cleared, it didn't necessarily affect him. But I think age is just...
There's not 26 guys better than that guy as a basketball player, and everybody knows that.
But age is such a detriment in the eyes of teams.
We do this every year. We say, why is Desmond Bane going at the end of the first round? Why is Jalen Brunson,
even like to Boston, Baylor Shireman,
right?
Like the guy Bill Simmons wanted it. Like everybody viewed as like, oh, Baylor Shireman's going to be good. He's like one of the best pick and roll creators in the class. He's a great shooter. He's versatile. He's got size. Well, he's older.
That's right.
He's older. Even though like a Desmond Bane, you mentioned him, one of the best shooters in basketball. He's further improved, into his mid-20s. Every player is on a different trajectory. Some guys are elite prospects at 18, 19 years old when they're entering college. Other guys take a little while to get there. Some guys are late bloomers in high school. Some guys are stars as freshmen.
All right.
Everybody's on a different path. And so I think what Desmond Bane on Memphis is obviously one of the premier examples. Draymond Green, obviously, with Golden State as well. But Desmond Bane, to me, is the most recent one, considering the fact he comes out as a senior. What was he, 22, 23 years old when he's drafted late in the first by Memphis at number 30. And what does he do? He gets better every single year as a player. He's become better as a shooter, better as a creator, and that's exactly what happened for him at TCU, and maybe that'll be exactly what happens for Terrence Shannon with the Minnesota Timberwolves in the years to come. And I think like we talk about
the ageist,
that is, but like also situation.
Oh, yeah.
Shannon at Texas Tech, I think his defensive intensity and versatility there was more relevant than when he had a heavier offensive workload at Illinois after he transferred, because it's kind of like the Zach Edey thing. Edey was told not to block shots.
Right.
Edey had to take it a little bit easier on defense. Now in the NBA, he's going to be able to grind and hustle and try to block shots and make an impact around the rim. Now Terrence Shannon he's not the guy anymore like he was at Illinois. He's going to be able to grind on defense like he did in his underclassmen years at Texas Tech. So I look forward to seeing what Minnesota looks like, man. But I'm like very impressed with what they did this offseason with limited assets.
Yeah.
How do you come away with a top 10 pick?
I know.
But somehow you did.
Yeah.
And I think they could be really taking a leap this coming season because they got their lumps. They got two really high variance rookies. And we'll see what Minnesota does.
I mean, obviously, they've had a couple of the standouts thus far. The biggest bummer by a wide margin is what happened with Daron Holmes from Dayton.
Awful.
With the Achilles. I mean, obviously, we've had two of these super unfortunate ones before it ever starts. First, with Devin Carter. And when you and I were talking on our last show, I said, look, I know what they're saying. The shoulder thing is long.
I know. Well, I mean, it sounds like
now they're saying 6 months.
6 months. Yep. Yeah. I talked with Deuce and Mo, two great Kings reporters, analysts, based out of Sacramento for the NBA draft show yesterday when we recorded that. And they mentioned to me, they're like, they think it might end up a redshirt year. And I think that's very possible because you get reevaluated in December usually means we'll reevaluate you again in a month.
That's right.
And so like then it's mid-season. Do you really want to rush a guy back at that point? Again, maybe it depends on how good the Kings are and how much they're needing somebody like Devin Carter because I think he's the type of guy, again, an older prospect who can contribute right away.
Well, I'll tell you this. Last week was the first time John Morant got fully cleared.
Yeah. And that happened what January? Yeah. And we're in July.
January.
Yeah, we're in the middle of July right now.
So, I mean, it's not an injury that you're going to be able to
not at all.
Come back from easily.
Well, and then with Daron Holmes, talk about injuries that are hard to come back from. I mean, Daron Holmes, he ruptures his Achilles.
That one is brutal.
That can set you back for many years. And so
certainly a full year.
I mean, I think for Denver,
and you don't know what you're going to be post. I will say they have gotten so much better with this, though.
Of course.
We have seen guys be able to resume their careers at a much higher level than previously. It used to be tough. But when I first started covering the NBA, that was like a damn near a death sentence.
Well, then he's
you're just never going to be the same guy.
7-footer, though. I mean, it's scary. It's scary. And I think with Daron Holmes, part of the appeal.
But you've seen Clay come back. You've seen Durant come back.
I know.
I just watched Brandon Clark come back last year.
But what I'm saying is like from the Nuggets perspective.
Oh, yeah.
Your plan for this season was you draft Daron Holmes. You want him to be your backup center.
Yep.
You want him to be a center who can play with Jokic so you can play with two bigs just like a ton of teams across the league are doing because Holmes is one of the rare centers that is capable of being a bit versatile on defense. You could have him defend the perimeter and you could have him shoot threes. I thought it was a tremendous pick by Calvin Booth. He gave up 3 second-round draft picks to trade up to get him because everybody knew like it was a promise for weeks. It was 2-3 weeks. Everybody knew Denver wanted Daron Holmes, so they had to give up draft capital to get him. But the fact is like it made sense in so many different ways. And then you lose that guy really to continue an offseason that has been horrible for you already. You also had to give up 3 second-round picks to dump Reggie Jackson. You lose Kentavious Caldwell-Pope for nothing. You sign Dario Saric. You bring back Kankar, and that's about it. And now you might sign Russell Westbrook, who has proven to be a detriment the last few years with all his different stops. Like, this is looking like a disastrous last year for the Nuggets ever since they win the title, going back to when they lose Bruce Brown for nothing. They need their young players to receive investment on the court, is my opinion. I think Booth has the right idea with these rookies, but does Michael Malone see it the same way? Is he going to play Julian Strawther even more this season? Is he going to give a chance to Jalen Pickett and Hunter Tyson, who looked pretty good at times in the G League this past year? Are there and now like
he's not going to have a choice.
He doesn't have a choice. You have to.
Well, because now you look, once you've moved Brown to the starting lineup in the place of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, which we both thought was not a good loss for them by any means, especially at the price when you've got a championship level team. But I mean, this the dominoes start to fall. As soon as you've lost, now at least 3 of the guys that were big rotation guys on that title team between Bruce Brown, between Jeff Green, Reggie Jackson's gone now, so at least 4 of them. I mean, like when you're just looking at I know that there's going to be turnover in your top 7, top 8 guys. because you're not playing a lot by the time you get to the West Finals and you get to the finals. But really big turnover.
But you got to play. You got to play the young guys. I mean,
for sure.
I mean,
You don't have a choice anymore.
Boston has in their rotation Sam Hauser, an undrafted free agent, and then his second, third year. You got Peyton Pritchard in the final year of his rookie scale contract.
Yep.
A guy that had already played 40 plus playoff games in the first 3 years of his career because he received investments. You invest in your young players. We saw that the last year when Denver actually did it themselves with Christian Brown. They trade Bones Highland mid-year, which opened up minutes for Christian Brown. Malone had no choice but to play Brown more often. And what did Brown do in the playoffs? He had some big moments, big games, made a big impact on defense off the bench in a limited role. So I think...
Well, and that has not been their thing. And you could say they just keep missing, but it hasn't been their thing. You go back to R.J. Hampton, you go back to Bol, you go back to they have had guys.
Well, those are swings. That's like the opposite of what they've done.
They've had young guys that also they did not,
of course,
right? Like spending the time, nurturing and developing or whatever. Like they've had a couple of them, and it's like.
But these guys are older prospects, and like they're like last year, their two-way contracts got more minutes in the NBA than their second-round picks.
Right.
I think Hunter Tyson was one of those guys last year. I mean, yes, maybe he ends up not being an NBA player, but he's like 24 years old when he enters the league. Super seasoned 5-year player out of college, versatile on defense, plays hard, can shoot threes, can do a little bit off the dribble. Like to me, that was like perfect behind MPJ. Jalen Pickett needed more ball handling. Reggie Jackson plays the whole year. We know who Reggie Jackson is.
Yep.
He doesn't elevate your play necessarily. Pickett, we'll see if he even plays this year. We'll see if they sign Westbrook. That hasn't happened yet. I'm a little surprised it hasn't happened yet. It seems like all the reporting around it was that Westbrook was going to go to the Nuggets. Jokic wanted it. Harrison Wind of DNVR reported that. Adam Mares reported that as well. Yet it hasn't happened yet. I wonder why that is, if there's some disagreement within about whether to bring Westbrook in. To me, the answer is clear. Invest in your young players. Invest in them from opening night of the season throughout the year. See what you got in them. And then if they turn into trade assets, great. Then you can get good veterans. And then if they turn into guys that you want to keep and have as rotation guys, then keep them around.
Well, and I think you're also going to see the way. I think part of it is there's still a lot out there in terms of free agency that hasn't taken place yet.
It feels more like baseball, doesn't it?
We had that first run of it, and then it's slowed down since. And like, let's just say there was the rumor going around about Tyus Jones. And maybe the Clippers, zeroing in on him.
Oh, that'd be great for the Clippers.
But you have to see what happens with Tyus Jones before you decide what you're doing with the Westbrook thing.
Yes.
And so there's
maybe
last part
maybe
of free
Denver
agency,
even could be like a Tyus Jones type of team because they have the Zeke Naji contract that could be a good fit for that.
And maybe there'll be some action that goes on out here at Summer League as you get a lot of these executives in the same rooms and talking face to face with each other.
Agents as well, everywhere.
But no, after that first bit of free agency, it has been a glacial speed. I know there's a lot of good players out there that do not have teams yet. And so maybe people just want to see what they've got at Summer League as well in terms of which of the young guys they trust to be able to play minutes for them, what they think. Like, you may look at it and you may go, let's just say if you're Houston, you're going, well, geez, man, we're going to play this kid 35 minutes, right? Like, so now who's not going to be
Denver,
playing
like
who's not going to be
just
doing
to bring
this?
it back to Denver, like you're going to play Jalen Pickett a lot in Summer League. If he sucks, I mean, you're going to feel more pressure to go out and get somebody else. And if he's really good, maybe you're like, okay, we're playing this guy. No doubt about it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Two other things we got to mention before we get out of here. The first is we never got to discuss the Brunson contract, which, I mean, of the free agency stuff, nothing got more buzz than him signing that extension and opting in for the 4 years, $156.5 million, when everybody knew that next year he would be eligible for 5 years, $269 million. I have read the stuff about, the last year, he'll be able to recoup some of this by signing a huge deal. That one, look, doesn't matter how you want to frame it. This guy is taking a lot less money than what he could be locking in, a lot more. He's leaving a lot of money on the table. Now, there are certainly horror stories, i.e. a small guard, Isaiah Thomas.
If he got hurt this coming season.
For sure.
Yes. To me, to me, him taking the money is a no-brainer move for exactly that reason.
This also has a million elements of which are not applicable in any other situation. Like, we have never seen a guy do this. We have seen this happen, like, it happened in the NFL many times with the restructuring of contracts. We've seen, like, everybody wanted to have a damn parade for LeBron for, not making him pay $500 billion to have a shitty basketball team. And they wanted to, have a parade in LA for him for giving back $1 million or whatever the hell he gave.
LA didn't get a parade for winning the championship. So it only makes sense to have a parade for LeBron.
We're going to have a parade for LeBron giving back $2 million while they gave his son $8 million. Anyways, like, one of the things with the Brunson deal is he left a lot of money on the table, and it's just not. His situation is just not applicable. His dad is on the staff and has been buddies with Thibodeau for the last 30 years. His godfather is the GM, and 3 of his best friends in the world are all on the team. Like, there is no circumstance like this. Like, so if we were ever going to get it to happen where somebody said, you know what? You can have all the money in the world. I'd rather be happy. And what would make me happy is me having my Nova Knicks with my dad, with my godfather, and I want to also be able to compete for a championship.
Exactly. And that's the big one here.
Right.
That's above all else, is it helps position the New York Knicks franchise to better contend for a championship, pulling them out of the second apron right now.
That's what would truly make me happy.
Exactly. That's what could get him a statue in front of Madison Square Garden for decades to come, for centuries to come, you'd hope. And I think with Brunson, man, like...
It's a small statue.
Well, they can make it bigger.
Oh, okay.
They can make the statue 7 feet.
Gigantic.
Yeah, they can make it huge.
Statue.
How about like 30 feet tall? A Jalen Brunson statue.
Yeah, you don't want. Yeah, they're looking like a garden gnome.
Yeah, have it taller than MSG.
Like that freaking horrible statue. Philadelphia, that Iverson statue's a disgrace.
Well, I guess they have all small statues, which I think is silly. You get statues have to be huge.
I know,
like ancient Greek.
Yes,
right, the Roman type of thing. That's what I want. And so I think with Brunson, have a massive statue if the Knicks win a title or multiple titles. But that's the thing. Like he sacrifices. He's getting paid hundreds of millions, and this first deal that he's taking, right?
Yep.
But he could be rewarded on the back end when he's in his 10th year, and then he's like getting paid $80 million annually. Yep. What?
Well, the other thing is, you do feel like he will. Like, that's already set up.
Yeah.
And you do
assuming he's in good health at that point, assuming he's still a high level player.
Here's the other thing. You feel like, in the way that once upon a time you got these horror stories of like Isaiah Thomas not extending or whatever, and then something happened to him. He's also with a group that ain't screwing him over. Jalen Brunson's he's never gonna get like just thrown to the wolves
for sure.
And not get. They're gonna make him.
He's in the
they're
perfect
gonna make
place.
him whole no matter what for doing.
He's in the perfect place, and he's with all his friends. He's with family. I mean, like it really is like genuinely really wholesome.
The off-court
basketball
money
story
he's gonna make is outrageous.
Oh my god.
He's king of New York right now.
I mean, he's a legitimate MVP contender this coming season. His
and
profile,
their team is going to be great.
Yes, his profile nationally could rise as well this coming year. If you're looking at like underdog MVPs, to me, like the 2 main ones are Victor Wembanyama with the Spurs, because, young guy, maybe the Spurs are better than people expect. And then Jalen Brunson with the Knicks. Because if the Knicks get a 1 seed, they're a great story. A lot of voters typically look for stories. Brunson's going to put up massive numbers on that team. He's going to be the best player on that team. Maybe he's the guy who ends up getting rewarded. Now, would I choose either of those guys over the favorites? No. But I do think Brunson has a shot with this Knicks team this coming year, because it's a loaded team, man. It's a great team, seriously.
And the last thing is, outside of Summer League, the other time that we may get back here is for the IST.
Yeah, well, not anymore. Tournament. Now they're calling it the NBA Cup. They changed.
They did.
Flipped.
They changed it to the NBA
Good
Cup.
Call.
I like that.
Good decision. Makes way more sense.
They put together all like the different brackets. It's worthless to go through and talk about who's got the hardest. You never know the way this stuff's going to shake out. You never know who's going to have injuries. You never go. There's going to be teams that we expect to be good that aren't good. There are going to be teams that we expect to be bad that are much, much better, right? Yeah. There's no question, though, the NBA has really bought into this whole Vegas thing. And whether it is now Summer League or whether it is this NBA Cup, I think now you see NBA stuff everywhere. The partnerships are everywhere. There will obviously be a team here at some point, but this has kind of become the meeting ground for everything that goes on in the NBA. And I do think one of the things that I gleaned from Summer League this year is that we were part of that last year, inaugural IST as it was. But this NBA Cup, my prediction is it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and you're going to see a lot of fans coming out to it in a way where it becomes, they're going to make that they're going to make it even bigger and better. I mean, they had all kinds of concerts associated with it last year. And when you were around town, they had friggin' billboards of Tyrese Halliburton.
They had the basketball on the Sphere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is going to be, it's going to be a very big deal. And you could see every time, the NBA keeps getting more and more involved on the Vegas front. And it actually has become, I have met so many fans that have just made this trip as like a vacation.
It's with their boys, like they come out with friends and all that, and they all meet up in Vegas.
I've seen couples out
here.
Oh,
me too. Yeah.
You know, and I've seen people with families even.
Yeah.
They brought their kids.
They brought kids, yeah.
So
it's pretty cool. I mean, I think to me, like if you're a listener of our show, like if you've been listening, a year, months, or 8 years ever since we began this years ago, like to me, try to make a trip out to Vegas, whether it's for the NBA Cup, but especially for Summer League. It's just a really fun time. I think like all the events, you can organize it so like you go see a Chris Angel or you go see Dead and Company, whatever it is that you want to do. Like, but as part of your day, sometimes you might watch some games, Thomas and Mac. Sometimes you might be going seeing a magic show or whatever else, or having great dinners. The food here might be the best food in America. I think in Vegas, LA, New York are some of the best food cities. But Vegas, I know the Ringer, Dave Chang with his podcast, he has said Vegas is the best food in America. I think that that might be right. I mean, to me, like I get it, man. I think Vegas is really cool to visit, and I look forward to seeing what it's like with an NBA team here as well. Because every time I take like an Uber or a taxi, like inevitably the conversation, like we start talking basketball, and like a lot of people,
you say, "Hey, I'm Kevin O'Connor from the Ringer."
Well, I asked, "What are you here for?" Well, I asked, "What are you here for?"
And then the Uber driver's like, "You shut up."
That's what you do.
No.
That's what you do. You and your ego.
Say, get me to my destination. I do like my buddy Chris Mannix.
And you don't leave a tip either.
Chris Mannix, look, I'm going to sell him out right now.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
That dude says he's deaf on his Uber thing so that the guy won't talk to him.
No way.
Yes, he does.
That's such a Mannix thing to do. It's so unsurprising.
If anybody runs up on Mannix, tell him I told it. I just outed him to the world. He hates Uber drivers that talk so much that he registered that he
That's such a Mannix thing to do.
Deaf. I swear to you.
Oh my God. Wow.
I mean, that's really, you don't want anybody to talk to you.
Wow. I mean,
it's unbelievable.
I mean, I think sometimes he's got his AirPods in at games too, probably just so nobody says
he
hi
doesn't want anybody to talk to him. All right.
Well, but anyway, with Uber drivers, they talk about how like the Knights and the Aces have developed some pretty passionate fan bases here locally, but also people coming into town that are always passing through Vegas every month of the year that go to games, see what it's like. So you get tourists mixed with locals, and it's always a good atmosphere. I had a great time at an Aces game years ago.
Sure.
It was a very fun atmosphere. I haven't seen any other sports here besides obviously, NBA with Summer League, but I thought the crowd was great for everything. So except for the G League Ignite because it's so far out away at Henderson, but obviously that's gone now.
Yep.
But yeah, I think Vegas is going to be a great sports city for the NBA once we eventually get a team here. But for now, these events are awesome, dude.
They're awesome.
I'm already excited to come back for December.
We will certainly reconvene in December out here. Everybody's got to pack up all the stuff here so we can set up shop back in LA. But we're going to sign off for our Summer League in-person mismatch that we were able to do. Thanks to everybody here out on site. And Kevin, I'll talk to you later this week.
I look forward to it. Have a good week.